So we've got a lot of action going on our board right now, but there's one thing we kind of want to limit on our players, and that's them having a little bit too much action, which is if we start creating some matches here, I can create matches while other things are happening. So we don't really want our player to be able to move objects around while the game is in action, because that can create lots of problems, but also it's just a different type of gameplay. Now, to be honest, it is kind of fun being able to just click and drag gems around whenever you want to, but it kind of makes it harder for the player to really pay attention to what's going on. It's very common in these kind of games to only let players move when the board is no longer changing its state in any way. So we want to make sure that happens in our game. Now, if you want, you don't have to do this, or you can you can take it out later when we've played around with it. It's good to try these things and see what works and what doesn't. But how we're going to handle this is much like on our gems. When we created this enum to say all the different kinds of gems we can have, we're going to create an enum on our board that will control what state the world is in. So whether we should be waiting or whether we are moving. So right in here, I'm going to create a public enum that we're going to call board state. And I'm going to give this two values, one for wait and one for move. And then we're going to create a public board state that we'll call current state. And by default, I'm going to set that to be board state.move, because we want our players to be able to make moves as soon as the game starts. So how are we going to handle this controlling our game? Well, what we're going to do is we're basically going to put it into different states at different times. So when on our player, we want to make sure that we can only, if we go to our gem here, when we press on mouse down, we're going to make sure we can only do this if the board state is in the move state. So in on mouse down here, we're going to say if board.current state is equal to board.board_state.move. So basically, is it in the move state at the moment? And if it is, we're allowed to do our action. And we're going to do the same thing for when we press the mouse up here. We're going to say, when we release the mouse, no matter what, when we release the mouse, we always want to say, well, mouse pressed is false. That's never something we want to not have happen. But we do only want it to actually have an effect if the board state is in move mode. So if board.current state again equals board.board_state.move. So as long as we're allowed to move, then we can do our calculate angle, and then that'll start the whole process of trying to find matches and stuff like that and destroying them. So that's how we will check it, but how are we going to actually set it? So let's jump back into our board script, and in our fill board coroutine in here, if we're in this coroutine, then we should be in the wait mode. Actually, well, let's get ourselves into the wait mode first of all. So let's go back to our gem. I'm thinking a little bit 2 steps ahead there. We haven't actually got into the wait mode just yet. So in our check move coroutine down here, what we're going to do is, as soon as this happens, so basically as soon as our gems swap positions, so as soon as this isn't swapping back, this is before they swap back, this is as soon as we start this, we're going to say, okay, make our board.current state equal to board.board_state.wait. So we're telling it, okay, as soon as we start moving, we can't take any more input. We're saying we're in the wait phase. And then if the gems don't match, so if they should be switching back to their previous position, we'll tell it, okay, well, wait a second. So yield return new wait for seconds, because remember, we're still inside the coroutine here. We're going to tell it to wait half a second for the gems to go back into their original positions, and then say board.current state is equal to board.board_state.move. So we're basically saying, hey, if the gems switch back into their original position, then we're allowed to move again, because we obviously want our player to be able to move again at that point. Okay, so that's fine. So that's one way out of the wait position. The other way will be in our fill board code, which is where I was originally going. What we want to do is, we already have a thing here for if our current matches, or if there's more matches to be found, then it goes and starts the process again to destroy the matches. But if there's no matches left to be found, then at this point we'll say else. Again, we'll tell it to just wait half a second, yield return new, wait for seconds, and this is to, at this point, remember we've refilled the board, so we're just making double sure that all the gems are in their position that they should be. And we're telling it, okay, they're all in positions now, so set our current state is equal to board state dot move. So perfect, let's test this out. If I go back in here now and we let this play, I'll let it compile and then we'll play. So if I go ahead and play now, if I make a match, I can no longer move anything until it's all settled in. Oh well, that's another one gone. It's all settled into position, and then it's not letting me do anything. What's going on here? We're still in the wait stance for some reason. Have I missed something here? Let's let it just play out. And we're still in wait. Okay. Okay, so I found what the issue is here. Something that just hadn't occurred as we went, which is that if I play here, and if I let this happen, and there we go, we got to the end of that. So my board is still in the wait phase because we're not getting to this point to tell us to move, because we do a check here to check if our current matches count is greater than 0, and then it'll go back and play the coroutine over and over again. The problem is, in our match finder, the current matches still has these values, because although these gems are missing, they're still unique gems and they never got removed from our list. So let's go back into our script over here in our match finder, and here, every time we call our find_match function, we actually want to use this bit that I commented out earlier, the current matches.clear. We actually want to remove that, or we actually want to clear our list every time this function is called, because we want to make sure it's empty every time it starts, so that we don't run into the situation we just ran into here. I forgot to revisit this when we were meant to revisit this when we got to this point. So let's go back to our board. And one thing I'm also going to do from my board is I'm also going to remove this now, because we know specifically when we want to find all our matches. We don't need this to be constantly running an update. We only want it to find matches either when we move objects, which in our gem over here, we're calling the find_all_matches function, and that's when we check if there is a match. Otherwise, we want it to happen right down here in our full board coroutine. When we refill the board, we'll do another check to find all the matches. So those are the only times we actually want to check for matches. So we don't need this to be constantly running the whole time and going through our game. So those are two minor little changes to make. And then if we jump back in here, this time we should see this in action properly. If I go ahead and play, so if I drag this over, now once they settle, I can switch all of these as much as I want to. And if we go to our match finder, you'll see they are being they're being removed once it's called for the second or third or whatever time in our game. So perfect, we now have it constantly looping. We're able to limit the input of our players so that they can't just constantly drop gems in and things like that. So their game now feels quite a bit better. I do notice though that this is maybe a bit long. Let's pull this back down to just be half a second, because even with the falling gems, there's still plenty of time for this to come into action here. So let's just play one more time, and we'll see all of this should be working just the way we want it to. So this will destroy, drop new ones in. There we go. Perfect. We got loads of time. Everything flows nicely in the game. And that's basically the main core systems of our game. Now we can start adding some more fun elements and making it look a bit better and make it feel a little bit little bit better for our players to play.